Okay, well, good evening, everyone. In this week's Cafe, Ayurveda Cafe, we're going to continue our discussion of the importance of diet to health according to SV Ayurveda. Jim Pace will continue to share the concept and definition of food according to the understanding and practical application of Vaidya Mishra's Shaka Vansya Ayurveda lineage. Jim will touch upon food for the light of the soul, what is considered wholesome food, sattvic food, why certain foods contain or enhance prana and others do not, the benefits and consequences of adhering or not adhering to Vaidya Mishra's dietary guidelines. Wonderful. Welcome, Jim.
Thanks, Noreen.
And this is sort of part two. We started last week, right, with this topic, and specifically, what do you want to address this evening? Because I know a lot of this you addressed in last Thursday, actually, Ayurveda Cafe.
We left off at a point where I was going to talk about the consequences of eating good food and the consequences of eating bad food.
Okay, all right. I thought we were going to skip that part.
We're going to do that because it's important, but we'll try to go quickly because then I'm going to give you the exact dietary
recommendations
by Vaidya Mishra that he gives to every new client.
Okay, all right.
And reminds the old ones, the returning clients. And then I'll go into a greater detail about his reasoning and Ayurveda's reasoning for not eating nightshades and not having garlic and onions.
That's right. We started to talk about that last week, but we didn't. You were going to. That was going to happen tonight. Excellent. Well, those sound like good places to start. So you've got the floor.
So we'll start. What are the benefits of eating intelligent food that is not just intelligent, but it was cooked properly and combined with other things properly and use proper spices and oils and all the other little things that make or keeps that food intelligent, because even good food prepared the wrong way and eaten in the wrong way may not deliver its benefits. So assuming that we did all those good things with that intelligent food that we're going to enjoy, what are the good things and benefits that we can expect from generally following a diet of pranic intelligent food, which is appropriate for our physiology? One of the first things that food will do, it will help three functions of the mind and brain. We call those MEDHA, MEDHA, not MEDA, which refers to the fat tissue, but MEDHA refers to three functions of the brain and mind. And those three functions are called D, Driti, and Smriti. D is the power of our learning capacity, and Driti is our retaining capacity, the ability to retain what we learn. And then Smriti is the power of recall. And they have to be independently strong and also coordinated with each other if we are to understand our lives and our world and function in a very smooth and easy way in our day-to-day life with intelligence. So D is increasing the learning ability. And obviously a lot of news is out there over the years how kids are having trouble focusing in their diet, and no small measure is contributing to that problem. There is a connection there with bad diet. And personally, growing up early on and as a kid, I had a hard time learning, and I was eating very bad food. Of course, I didn't know it at the time. It was, what I was brought up eating, but looking back, it was very dumb and dead food with no ability to support my mind's ability to think clearly. So it increases the ability to learn, then increases your retaining ability, called Driti, retaining power of the mind. And also intelligent food increases Smriti, the ability to recall when and as needed. Okay, so those are three important benefits. And then another one is called good food increases sara, which means the excellence of your tissues, your 7 tissues, good muscle tone and the good blood and the good nerves and the good fat, all good tissues come from eating good food. Uh, then one other benefit we call sahanana, means endurance against physical stress. Good for giving you physical endurance. More, you can do more labor, more work. And then we have another benefit called mano shakti, which is your mental stamina to resist stress. In day-to-day life, we all have stress, and you need to have good pranic food in order to handle the stress without making any bad chemicals in the body, like cortisol from stress. So food gives us ability to handle the stress in a positive way and not a reactive way that floods our body with bad neurotransmitters, or not transmitters, but cortisol is the number one bad chemical that is implicated in many disease processes, and it comes from our inability to handle stress. And then we have Vyadik Shamatva, which means that's the Sanskrit word for immunity. So good food and good spices like turmeric, especially, a lot of research on turmeric that shows it supports our immune system, something Ayurveda has documented long ago. And then good food supports the heart. That's called hridya, supports your cardiac health, because the heart from day one has to beat end to end to your end of your life. And Vaidya Mishra says, who needs more power of rhythm than your heart? And intelligent food has the intelligent rhythm of nature. The brain needs it, but mostly the heart needs it, because it has to beat continuously for how many years that we're alive. And it has to beat in the proper rhythm. If it goes out of rhythm, then you have irregular heartbeat and arrhythmia and heart attack and those sort of things. So the heart needs to beat in the proper rhythm, coordinated with the cosmic energy, which is found in the good food, the cosmic energy. And another benefit is called prasana chitta. And I love how Vaidya Mishra will use a nice analogy to explain what he means by prasana chitta. Like he says, you live in the same house, you have the same car, you have the same dress, nothing has changed in your life, but you eat good food and you're happy. So it's not based upon, well, I accomplished this. I have my house, I have my car, I have the good clothes, I have a bigger bank account. A lot of people have all those things and they're still not happy. It's not enough because they're eating dumb and dead food. But a person who may not have a lot of things is happy with what he has because he has good, intelligent food. That's called the prasana, the happiness of the consciousness, prasana chitta, right? So just think about that, how food can keep us happy no matter what can help to keep us happy no matter what our outer circumstances may be. And then, very importantly, good food is supporting vyastapana. Vyastapana. Vyastapana means reversal of aging. So now that we've covered the consequences of eating the good food, now what about consequences of eating the bad food? One is called Vayahani, increasing the aging process. You look older than your chronological age. I don't think it's very difficult for us to venture out into the public and look around and see the people that are only in their 40s or 50s, and we are pretty sure by what's going into their grocery cart that they're eating very bad food. And so they do look older quite often. And then we have kapha medo vivardhanam, which means it increases bad food. It can go the opposite too, but in a large part, a lot of people eat food that will increase their kapha. They put on more weight, they put on bad fat, they accumulate bad fat all over the body. And again, sometimes it can have the opposite effect too, such as weight loss, but a lot of times all this bad food is too much bad meat, bad salt, bad oil, bad carbohydrates that put on bad weight, dumb toxic fat. Bad food does something bad called Agni Bala Hani, disturbs your digestive power, your metabolic power. And then you start to accumulate toxins because when you disturb your digestion and metabolism, the toxins build up. It's a kind of a bad kind of self-sustaining cycle. That digestive metabolic power becomes weakened, toxins accumulate, and they in turn make that problem a poor metabolism even worse. They're kind of like so it's a self-sustaining kind of a cycle. And then we talked about the good part of making your mind more intelligent. We have dibramsha, slows your learning ability. Then we have driti bramsha, slows down your retaining ability. And then we have smriti bramsha. You can't remember things, and we know this smriti bramsha has, there's a lot of relationship to diet and Alzheimer's, dementia, ADD, other disorders of that sort that indicate that our smriti isn't working very well. And then we have chanchal chitta, which is a lack of concentration. When your light of your soul is not getting fed that sattva, that pranic energy, then your mind gets disconnected and you're not connected with your soul's light. And the mind will become slave of the senses. Then you can't concentrate. Your mind, it's another thing Vaidya says, like you go to, you have a zillion things to do. You wake up, you're enthusiastic, you want to accomplish a lot of things, and you feel like you can do it. But after you went to the bad restaurant and ate bad food, say you go to McDonald's and have shake, fries, whatever they call it, the big burgers they have there, you might just say, oh, I don't care anymore. I just want to go to sleep now. I know I don't have any more enthusiasm to do work. Just leave me alone. I don't feel like doing anything. And I think we've all experienced that at some point in our life when we've eaten too much or the wrong thing, that we lose our enthusiasm to study, to work, to finish a project, whatever that may be. And that's called chanchal chitta, lack of concentration. And we have something called punsavan shakti hras, affects fertility and libido. Bad food will lower libido, and there's a lot of studies that's been done on pesticides, how it decreases the male libido. And the fertility rate is also worldwide has fallen, and a lot of that is due to the fact of pesticides and other sort of toxins in our diet. They increase our sexual desire and our fertility rate. And then we have vyadi, they lower your immunity. They take away the intelligence of the immune system. And that's the bad part. All the autoimmune diseases, according to Ayurveda, means because you see, our immune system is like an army that has to be coordinated. All the parts have to work together to be strong. All the sections, all the parts of the army have to communicate with each other. And that's our immunity. Our immune system is like that. They all have to communicate with each other in a proper way to maintain immunity. So what happens when all these toxins are accumulating and autoimmune problems are happening due to bad food, acidic food, food that became very reactive to the body? The body's own immune system goes against it. That's an autoimmune problem, but a lot of bad autoimmune problems are simply due to bad diet. Over many, many years consuming a bad diet. And then arthritis is another factor of bad food. Asti shot. Shot means like swelling. Asti is the bone. And so arthritis is a consequence. Very common. We see it every day. A lot of people have arthritis. And we'll talk about the implications of the nightshades and arthritis in a moment. And then we have the, see if my pronunciation is correct, Vivaranata, taking away the lustering glow of your face and body. Bad food means you don't glow. If you eat, I think we can eat divine food. If you're lucky enough to eat really divine food, which, I have had that opportunity, and I try to cook that way, but especially when I was living in California and was invited to have dinner or lunch with Dr. Mishra, it was divine food, and I always felt more energized and happy, and I looked better, and I could get back to the office and complete my work. But it takes away the glow, takes away the luster, that that prabha we talked about in the beauty talk. So one of the worst consequences of eating the bad food is called Visha Nirharan Shakti Hras. Visha Nirharan Shakti Hras, which means it lowers your power of detoxification. And why it's the bad thing? Why is that one of the worst things of a bad diet? Because number one, you're eating toxins and they have their own bad effect. But in turn, those toxins, the bad food, is itself creating and weakening, or whether it's weakening your body's own ability to detox. Not only are you adding the toxins, have their own issues, but on top of that, your power to get rid of those toxins is going down at the same time. That's why this is so bad, this particular consequence of lowering your power of detoxification. Because then how do you recover, right? Because we all have a detox power, especially when we're younger. It's just part of what we are. It's not like, oh, we think we have to do detox. Well, our physiology is always doing detox if it's intelligent. If we're not going against its intelligence, it's already doing the detox. And that's one aspect that Vaidya Mishra says, I don't do harsh detox. I wake up your detox power. It's already there. It's just asleep. I want to wake it up. So the body knows already what to do and how to do it. But bad food goes against that. So the liver, the colon, the lungs, the skin, they all have the power to detox. And bad food compromises that ability. Nature gave us that power, but we lose that and we keep eating bad food. So that's the conclusion of the consequences of good and bad food. Any intermediate questions at this point?
I think what I would suggest is to continue your talk, and then we'll reserve the questions for the end.
Okay.
I do have some questions, but
Yeah,
Okay.
I assume you're going to talk now about what foods are that I assume you're going to talk now about the foods that are
Yes.
causing these kind of effects. Yeah.
Yes, in a general way, not every item, but in a general way, yeah. So Vaidya Mishra would always.
Oh, Jim, a quick thing for you. Your video, you could be your computer. I'm kind of losing your. You could elevate a little bit.
Well, I can't elevate it, but I can bring it closer
Okay.
or turn it down. Like
That's
that.
a little bit. That's better there. Yeah, that's good. Thanks.
Okay.
Yeah. See you better.
Vaidya Mishra can't teach people how to eat all good, great Ayurvedic in one setting, but he would start them in a gentle way without compromising the effect. That was his purpose. He didn't want people to. He understands modern life very well, and he understood that we don't have time to cook the way he does every day, even though he's very, very busy. But he tried his best, and he says, I know it's even hard for me. So he has this general dietary guidelines to get people started on a good way of eating. He would give them a one-page handout, and it was called SVA General Dietary Guidelines. Now, if anyone ever gone to another Ayurvedic practitioner, they get a Vata pacifying diet or a Pitta pacifying diet or a Kapha or some combination of those three. But Vaidya Mishra didn't do that. Again, his purpose was enhance the pranic food and take away those things that are interfering with your reception and delivery and use of prana. So again, his dietary guidelines are about choosing food with maximum intelligence, maximum prana, and avoiding those foods that are dumb and dead, or that in any way interfere with our reception and delivery of pranic energy. Because prana is the ultimate healing factor, regardless of your imbalances. It's a very simple way of approaching the diet and very effective. Of course, there's a lot more we can do after that, after we get used to that. But to start out with, that's where he would start people. And then later he wrote a big cookbook with hundreds of recipes, a lot of details, not just the recipes, but his purpose for those recipes, what they do, and how to combine spices, and all about Ayurvedic cooking. That's called, it's out of print right now. That's called Ayurvedic Recipes for Balance and Bliss. So let me tell you now, what are these SVA general dietary recommendations? I'll go point by point. Start your day with a breakfast of stewed apple or pear with 1 clove or 2 cloves. Then you are going to be more hungry because clove will wake up it opens the burner of your stomach. We call it the burner, the gap, and the flame goes higher. So, and then after you eat that, then you can have some unprocessed whole grain cereal, oatmeal, or quinoa, or if you like eggs, you can even do that. And then we say avoid all the nightshades, the potatoes, the eggplant, the bell peppers, tomatoes. Avoid all large beans such as kidney beans, soybeans, and lima beans, pinto beans, and black beans, and garbanzo beans, those sort of big beans. Avoid those. Favor the smaller beans like yellow mung dal, French lentils, red lentils. Avoid the bananas, the big bananas. Avoid flaxseed and flax flour. Avoid the winter squashes. Use summer squashes, zucchini and yellow squash. Again, avoid the soy products and the soy byproducts, tofu and soy
Would you
milk.
mind going a little bit more slowly?
Okay.
There's a lot of information here.
Yeah, avoid the soy products of all sorts, especially the ones that are highly processed. Speaking of which, avoid all processed foods and don't eat leftovers. Do not eat yesterday's meal. He does say that you can have for dinner a few hours later what you had for lunch, but that's as long as you can go. Avoid food with preservatives. That's common sense. And avoid canned foods. And then a lot of people, they use bad sour things like vinegar and bottled dressings. So he says don't use those unintelligent sour taste products. Rather use lime juice, which you can drizzle on your food after it's cooked and cooled down a little bit. But don't cook with lime. It loses the buffering ability. If you cook with it, it will remain sour. It won't convert to the sweet taste later. And here's a big one for me to do. Replace coffee with green or white tea, or your herbal water recipe. We're not going to go into the water recipe, but he's saying, in other words, don't drink coffee and try to have green or white tea. Avoid table salt and instead use his soma salt. I think I mentioned that previously, using soma salt. And then use spices in your cooking. Either those that are recommended to you by an SVA practitioner in a consultation, or use one of the spice mixes, such as Mom's Super Spice, which you can get at chandika.com. He has many spice mixes, but the most general one, the one that's mostly used by most people, is called Mom's Super Spice. So you need to sprinkle it on your food or cook with it. We need spice. Spices do so many good things for us. Help us digest, help us detox. They help absorption, assimilation. They're antioxidants. They're good. They support the brain. They help the liver detox. They wake up the colon. There's just so many benefits of using proper spices. Um, and they make food taste a lot better too. You know, our horses, our sense organs need to be happy. They need to enjoy what we eat. That's part of the the reason we eat is for the physiology and for the happiness of our sense organs. Um, and avoid tap water, avoid chlorine, which kills all the, kills your friendly bacteria, either internally or externally. So drink a good spring water with a good pH, not too alkaline, but not on the, more like in the 7 to 8 range. That depends upon the person, but in general, it should be around a 7 pH. A good spring water, not a filtered water. That's not a good water. It's just chlorinated water that was filtered, but so it's lost its intelligence, lost its prana. We want water which has prana, specifically soma, because that's what good water has. It has more soma. And so those are the points of the dietary recommendation. And about how much time is left to talk about the nightshades?
Would that be your final topic for this evening?
Yeah, we're talking about the nightshades and the garlic.
You're fine.
Okay, let me bring up a different document that I have ready for that. Okay. There's an article that, this is actually, I took this from our SVA weekly newsletter from many years ago. It's called The Deadly Nightshades. And I haven't even gone over my notes, so I'm just going to read it. It says that my SVA lineage never strayed from the teachings of the Charak Samhita. This is our reference manual. And that some of my patients and colleagues pointed out that nightshades, with the exception of eggplant, were imported from the Western world and were unknown to Charak. So why is it SVA recommends not to eat them when they're not even found in the original text? So Vaidya Mishra says, as I explained, even though the Charak Samhita may not list them, the text nevertheless gives us the basic foundation and tools to understand any substance, no matter where it is from. That the Charak Samhita teaches us how to evaluate and determine the properties of new items and their biochemical effects on the body, helping us to determine whether we should eat them regularly as a food or only occasionally as a medicine, or not at all, unless they undergo some kind of a process of transformation. Modern science proves the wisdom of the Charak Samhita. Even though modern science comes from a different angle, it is scientifically known that the plants from the nightshade family contain many neurotoxins: nicotine, atropine, solanine, scopolamine, and others. And what do? One thing, they're addictive. They are addictive. And I've seen many Indians in consultations with him and on my own. And if I tell them not to eat nightshades, they're like, well, what vegetables can I eat then? They don't even know what else to eat. That's how they're very addictive and they're toxic. And so they travel quickly in the body. These nightshades, they bypass your body's metabolic pathways, normal pathways. They spread very quickly all over the body. And what are we talking about here? I'm going to get a little very detailed, Ayurvedically speaking. They have 2 prabhavas, specific actions, the nightshades, all the nightshades, specific actions, specific effects. One is called Vayavahi. And another one is called Vakasi. Any poison, every poison has these properties, these prabhavas, these specific actions, Vayavahi and Vikasi. Tobacco has it. Opiates have it. They all have it. They bypass the normal metabolic pathways. They travel quickly and they damage in their travels. Tobacco is a nightshade too, by the way, and it has that prabhava. So what does this mean? It's a little hard to understand right now. I know that, but basically it means the drugs that get absorbed immediately, even before going through the digestive process, they undergo digestion during their circulation in the body. These are called Vayavahi. They're made up of air and space, Mahabhuta, Vayu and Akash. Morphine, cannabis, these are poisonous toxic dravyas. They disperse very easily and quickly. They don't have to undergo the stage of digestion and absorption. And so do these nightshades we talked about. They have this Vyavayi Prabhava. They immediately go to your nadis, your vibrational channels, and they disturb those channels right away. And they deliver that energy to your entire body very quickly. So, so they spread quickly. They don't undergo the normal metabolic pathways of other things that we eat. And then when they're vikasi, what does vikasi mean? It means they dilate. They dilate the gaps between the tissues, such as the joints, such as arthritis. They make the joints weak. You see people who eat lots of nightshades, they're going to get arthritis at some point because they make the joints weak. Vikasi means they expand. They dilate the gaps, all the gaps. They overdilate, which makes the joints loose. And then they destroy the ojas from the dhatus, the tissues. So this vikasi effect is expanding the joints, making them weak and flaccid and not strong. And it's also destroying all the ojas in the gaps. So vikasi gradually destroys the ojas, which means it weakens our immunity. And they overdilate these vibrational channels, which impact the nerves. The nerves are the first victim of the nightshades because they overdilate the vibrational channels. And the nerves, our nerves, act like a bridge between the vibrational channels and the body. And what happens when these nadis are overdilated means all the tissues and all the joint movements get sluggish. So it would take time to digest what I just said. I just ran through it, trying to give you some of the Ayurvedic perspective, because as people pointed out to Vaidya Mishra, and he knew that, well, it wasn't in the Charak Samhita. These things were not mentioned. They weren't even in India at that point, except for eggplant. But as he said, the texts talk about other things that have this prabhava of Vyavayi and Vikasi. And so the nightshades have that, which means Ayurveda is against it, because these Vikasi, Vyavayi effect are the effects that all poisons have, either fast-acting poisons or slow-acting poisons. Now, Vaidya Mishra asked, I mentioned it last week, he asked a chiropractor. She used to live in Fairfield, by the way, and had a practice here. Her name is Dr. Lisa Raskin. And she studied with Vaidya a long, long time. And he asked her to do some research on the nightshades. In fact, there is a YouTube video, and you can check that out. Dr. Lisa Raskin, Research on Nightshades. So I just want to read a few things that she says in her video. Nightshades.
And Jim, is that Raskin?
It is, yeah.
Okay, thank you.
She did some research, and I listened to her talk live last year, one of our detox courses. And she went into a lot more detail than she did originally on that talk. And I just saw just how bad these nightshades are, how really bad they are. So nightshades are a large family containing, about 2,000 species. The main factor that unites all the species is a chemical compound called alkaloid. The most troublesome of those alkaloid is solanine. Solanine is a neurotoxin, and nightshades contain 6 other neurotoxins, including the atropine and the nicotine. That's why they're addictive. The greatest neurotoxin is neurotoxin. The alkaloid is the most is solanine, but the greatest neurotoxin is atropine, which is a blocker. It blocks nerve transmission. It blocks the nerve transmission. So we can easily see how bad that is. Anything that we eat is blocking our nerve transmissions. Alkaloids, which are found in nightshades, are basically there to help protect the plant from insects. So they're a pesticide, a natural sort of a pesticide. And she said in her research that potatoes were actually bred to make pesticides. Not potatoes, but there are some potatoes that are actually grown, she says bred, just to make pesticides. They dehydrate them and they pulverize them into a dust and they spread over plants to make a natural sort of a pesticide. Eggplant has a long history of being a toxic plant. A few spoonfuls of an eggplant contain the same amount of nicotine you would inhale if you were sitting in a closed room with a light smoker for 3 hours. That's a lot of nicotine. And when I even look at an eggplant, I don't want to eat it. It just revolts me. It's also been found that solanine can cause joint damage and inflammation. Many people experience stiff joints, painful wrists, ankles, and knees when they regularly consume nightshades. And researchers also think that the nightshades cause excessive loss of calcium from the bone and deposits of calcium into the soft tissues. And Vaidya said he was a great lover of nightshades. He said, I loved them too. And when I was growing up, my father was very strict with my diet. No nightshades were allowed in my mother's cooking. But he said, I discovered them later as a student living away from home. Although he didn't grow up eating them as a student. And he said, I also got addicted to them. And I had to wean myself off them when my father reminded me of how bad they are. I had to get myself off of those things. The reason he said that is because he said, I don't want you to think that I'm telling you not to eat them because of a personal distaste. Quite the contrary, I love them too. But I know what they do. And that's why I tell everyone not to do it. So this is a brief overview of some of the, let me see if I do have one more document with some more info on the nightshades, I believe. Just one second. I might have a little more information. I have a PDF on that. Yeah. Yeah, actually, there's a talk, chemical and nightshades called scopolamine, which depresses the central nervous system and is used as a sedative. And it's also used in the famous date rape drug, she says. But Vaidya says, neurotoxins affect humans differently. We know through Vaidya how awful the nicotine is because it has a strong relationship to disturbing our nadis. Its connection to cancer is well known. Science has found that nicotine can cause a short-term increase in your blood pressure, your heart rate. It can narrow the arteries. It's addictive. And again, the neurotoxin atropine is a blocker that prevents nerve transmission. And there's also inhibitors in these nightshades that, we have a neurotransmitters in the synapse between the nerve cells of the brain. There are things that are inhibitors that prevent the breakdown of the neurotransmitters. When the neurotransmitters are used, they get broken down. But there is something in nightshades that are called acetylcholinesterase. I can't pronounce it. Cholinesterase. They're inhibitors that prevent the breakdown of the neurotransmitters. And breaking those down is needed for the proper nerve function, which means the neurotransmitters, the used neurotransmitters, get stuck in the synapse, preventing proper nerve transmission and function. So then she goes into the history of the nightshades, how eggplant was called the mad apple. In the Mediterranean area, eggplant, that's kind of funny, but in Mediterranean area, eggplant was at one time thought to cause insanity if eaten daily for a month. And this is, she's had a lot of clients, and she gets them all off the nightshades over time. And she's going to tell us what happens. She says, there's two types of nightshade poisoning, acute and chronic. Acute can happen from green or sprouted potatoes and tomatoes because they have a lot more solanine. And they can give you cramps, diarrhea, dizziness, and sleepiness. And these are like short-term effects, but they can become more intense. And you can get chronic migraine headaches, intestinal disturbance, food poison-like symptoms, which a lot of people don't even connect with eating nightshade, such as potatoes. And then over time, things set in, such as chronic solanine poisoning can become anything from IBS, joint pain, appendicitis, birth defects, depression, endocrine suppression, especially the thyroid, all kinds of arthritis, increased intestinal permeability, migraines, osteoporosis, arteriosclerosis, and the interference of calcium absorption up to 80%, and interfering with the absorption of iron, vitamin D. So her whole article is quite lengthy, but she did a lot of research, and I don't have time to go into it because now I want to. Oh, here's an interesting thing. There was a time when they were saying that, oh, eat tomatoes because they will prevent prostate cancer, right? Well, she says the most recent study not only failed to prove that point, they found that men who had high levels of beta carotenes, such as those who might have eaten lots of tomato products, had the most aggressive form of prostate cancer. So that whole study was funded by the ketchup industry, actually. Dr. Mishra says.
Is this also work by Dr. Lisa Raskin, or who are you, Dr. Lisa Raskin? Are you referring to her work or somebody else's?
No, there's a research was done by a professor. They wanted him to research the tomato and the ketchup industry.
I see. Okay. All right.
Find something good about tomatoes. Remember when they came out, the lycopene thing?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
That was funded by someone who had a very vested interest.
I see. Okay.
Mm-hmm. Lobbyist. So quickly, because we have a little time left, I want to go into garlic and onion. There's a whole story about garlic and onion in the ancient texts, the Vishnu Purana and the Shiva Purana. There's an allegory about how garlic emerged on the earth. It's said that garlic emerged after the churning of the ocean, the creation of life. That Lord Vishnu, in his female form, was distributing the nectar, Amrit, to the gods, and then a demon snuck up into the lineup. And by the time Mohini, another name of Vishnu in his female form, saw a demon was hiding under the cloak, the demon had already taken the Amrit in his mouth. And the sun and the moon, witnessing this, prompted Mohini to behead the demon lest he attain immortality. So the nectar of immortality had not been swallowed. It was still in his throat. Mohini cut off his head with one blow. The demon, Rahu's blood, mixed with the Amrit, which was stuck in his throat, fell down to earth. And when it fell down to earth, it became garlic. And this is why garlic is said to have countless life-supporting and healing properties, which it does, in addition to being tamasic, which means it's toxic for the mind and spiritual health. And the reason Vaidya gives a story why garlic should not be used as ahar dravya. Ahar means a daily food item, something we do for daily consumption. There are times we can use it as aushadhi dravya, which means a medicinal substance consumed when needed in medicinal doses. We're talking about garlic here. Don't consume it on a daily basis. There are times when it can be useful, but it's not to be taken as ahar dravya, daily food item, more like aushadhi dravya, medicinal doses when needed. So uh, why? So why is that? Because one thing, you're taking sulfur, just like you take an antibiotic. That's why people say, "Oh, I got a cold. I'm going to take some garlic." Yeah, it has sulfur. It has antibiotic power, but we don't take an antibiotic every day. Uh, our stomach, our gut, not just the stomach, but the whole alimentary canal is lined with friendly bacteria, the yoginis, to help absorption, assimilation, and to keep out bad bacteria. We have to maintain that. And that population of friendly bacteria will grow or shrink depending on what you're eating and stress and other factors. So sulfur is not a great friend of the bacteria in the gut. It does because it does not discriminate between good bacteria and bad bacteria. Sulfur is effective to eradicate not only the infectious bacteria, yes, but it also kills our friendly bacteria. So which means again, we should not use this as a daily food item. Otherwise, we kill our friendly bacteria. And maybe one day I'll do a talk on that, the importance of these friendly bacteria. And onions do the same thing. I think garlic is stronger, but again, uh, they both harm the friendly colony of bacteria in the gut. It's not meant to be a daily food item, nor are onions, but rather to be used judiciously as a therapeutic medicinal ingredient. So they both have a lot of sulfur, and they close our heart lotus. Garlic can close the heart lotus. It has it's see there are two kind of primary vibrations in our food and in our environment. One is called asura and one is called sura. Sura means everything that's life supporting, giving life, equated with things that are godly. Asura means a bad vibration that resists growth and development of life and is considered to be destructive or demonic.
Using.
Yep. So Sura is when we have good vibrations and progress in life and bliss and happiness, and Asura goes against that. And Asura vibrations are Rajasic or Tamasic. And that's what garlic and onion are. They're Tamasic and Rajasic. They create that in the mind. And when they create that in the mind, they create that in the behavior. They make our sense organs become Rajasic or Tamasic. And they shut down our heart lotus and cut us off with our connection with the divine. Um, so that's some of the reasons. Again, the garlic and onion are very hot to the blood. They heat the blood. That blood goes to the brain, and it makes the brain less sattvic too. So there's spiritual reasons for not eating garlic and onion, and there's physical reasons. We talked about the friendly bacteria and the fact that how they can overheat the blood, overheat the brain, overheat the heart. Um, so that's some of the reasons why. And quickly on the beans.
If I may just interrupt, just say that also medicine finds that garlic is known to cross the blood-brain barrier, so it can really irritate the brain.
Well, it heats the blood up, and you get bad hot blood going to the brain. That's not such a great thing. It makes your thinking not very clear, you know.
Yeah, but science has also found that it crosses the blood-brain barrier.
So what else would I say? Oh, the large beans, real quickly, because I mentioned not eating the large beans because they're vistambi. That's a prabhava. Vistambi means they block the physical channels of the body. All larger beans do that, and it's something you can't change no matter how you cook it or prepare it. But Vaidya says if you're extremely physically active, then that heavy protein you could probably handle. Say he likes to give the say that if you're a desk worker, don't eat them, but if you're a Punjabi out working in the field all day, you can handle them because you're doing enough physical labor to unblock the channels and to digest their heaviness. What else did I talk about? The sour things. Yeah, lime is a good intelligent sour. The other things create amavisha, the hot toxins right away, become a hot toxins right away, like vinegar. And some of those dressings with preservatives. Um, so that will conclude, and we'll have some questions now.
Okay. Thanks, Jim. That was really great. I appreciate it. Why don't we open it up? Linda, do you have questions for Jim?
Yeah, I had a funny comment here. There is another, there is a Dr. Balraj Maharishi who helped to develop some Ayurvedic products. He was asked about potatoes. He was very knowledgeable on herbs, and he was asked about potatoes, about eating them. And his response was, "Oh, potatoes, they have one good quality." And they were like, "Oh, what is the good quality?" And he said, "They taste good."
Well, he was correct. They do taste good. There's no doubt. I like them myself.
Well,
But
that's taste. Taste is an important. Taste is important for bliss, and that feeling of bliss.
I was wondering if Dr. Mishra, if he at all talks about food combinations, if that's something that's going to come up in future talks, about dairy combined with salt and such things. Is that something
yeah,
you talk about?
he does. Sure, they don't. It's called Viradar. The principle is called Viradar Ahar, incompatible food combinations. But there's many types of incompatibility. Incompatibility due to taste, contradictory taste, and so it's not just one thing. But in general, people don't mix milk, dairy products with fish and meat. In the cookbook, he goes into that. He has that list. He talks about that in his cookbook. These different combinations. Don't have milk with meat or fish, and don't have salt with dairy milk. There's several, and I don't remember them all. I usually don't. I just kind of know over the years that certain things I don't combine.
Yeah. Because I'm finding a lot of people are making those kind of errors, so it's a good thing to really remind people
Yeah,
of.
most people are making those errors because they're not educated not to.
Yeah,
You know,
yeah.
most people are. They don't know. They simply don't know. Growing up, I had no clue. I drink milk with the steak my mother served me. Of course, I don't eat beef anymore for a long time, but um, yeah, there's many incompatible food combinations which can cause mild to more severe problems. People get diarrhea or constipation, or they feel uneasiness in their stomach. But they create toxins either way. They create toxins which go into circulation and go into different tissues, muscle, fat, even deeper tissues, autoimmune problems.
Yeah.
Because these toxins ferment, they become acidic. They undergo chemical degradation over time. Even simple ama becomes amavisha. Vaidya says time and temperature, even the heavy, sticky, non-toxic, channel blocking ama over time becomes amavisha, becomes the hot, acidic, reactive kind of toxins which damage the shotas, damage the cells, and create autoimmune disorders.
Yeah. Yeah, it even said like specific, or I heard specifically that mixing yogurt or milk with fish, it can cause specifically skin problems.
Oh,
So
yes. Yeah,
yeah,
right. It goes into rasa, and skin is the cream of rasa, we say. Um,
yeah,
so,
very
uh,
interesting. So wonderful to hear all of this stuff you were talking about. Maybe I don't have anything right now, maybe after, but Noreen, you have some questions?
Yeah, I think. Well, I'm just wondering about when we talk about just it could be any food, but specifically like the nightshades. What about the concept of okasapnia, where like the Irish, um, they potatoes is it's just part of their culture, it's part of their heritage, it's part of so they're habituated to this particular food, or if you look at the Italians and tomatoes, and the
No,
Mediterraneans, and the Middle
Vaja,
East, and eggplant, like, you can't say they can't have their baba ganoush. I mean, the roasted eggplant is absolutely incredibly delicious, and
well, Indian,
it's just so long part of their culture, and so again, they're habituated to these foods.
but habituated.
They and they've lived long lives. So how do we think
Look at
about
the way.
that? Oh, the concept of okasatmia
Well,
in Ayurveda.
oak means suitable by habitual use. Doesn't mean everything, no matter how much you eat it, becomes oksapmia. Doesn't mean that.
So
Oksapmia
we don't
doesn't mean.
have there. So there isn't any wiggle room for that.
No, there's no wiggle room. Vaidya Mishra,
Okay.
we're in Jersey City with an Italian lady married to an Indian man, and she's talking
Uh-huh.
about, the diet and talking about tomatoes and all that. He says, you don't think there's a lot of autoimmune problems in Italy? Believe me, he says, believe me, there are. He
Sure,
says,
sure.
we also have tomatoes in India. It doesn't mean just because this is a cultural thing that is great and you can do it. It doesn't mean there's no health issues from this bad food. He says it's true everywhere that there are issues with these sort of foods. Um,
Well, I just also wonder, not just the nightshades, but any food that might be problematic. To me, a lot of thinking about food is quantity. If I'm going to have, a cherry tomato on a salad and I do just a couple of them, it's not going to have the same impact than if every day I'm eating pasta with red sauce and tomato sauce, and so
when
it's
he,
kind of like that occasional use is. I
well,
just don't know if it's going to be that detrimental to your health.
well, he says he even has cherry tomatoes. He says the cherry tomatoes are the least problem.
Okay,
The
so
little,
I picked a good one.
just the little ones are the least problem. He says, I like them too. And once in a while, I'll have one of those. But he doesn't
Sure.
want people going into the mindset that I'll just have a little bit every day because they accumulate. These neurotoxins
Yeah.
accumulate in
Okay.
in the synapses of the
Right.
brain
Okay.
from these nightshades. One time, I hadn't had any nightshades in a long time. And we went out to an Indian restaurant in Edison, New Jersey, Little India. And he says, we're going to cheat a little bit. And I think we had some potato or something. He goes, you feel that little tingling on your tongue, James? Because I hadn't had them in a long time. I said, yeah,
Sure.
I can feel that tingling. He said, that's the nicotine. That tingling
Oh,
sensation
okay.
is
Sure.
called
Okay.
nicotine. And then he said, and plus it's bad oil because there's a
Well,
test you can take.
yeah. That's part of the restaurant eating in restaurants. It's usually the oils that are really gonna
But the
put
tingling
you over the edge.
sensation is nicotine.
Okay.
You
Wow.
get that.
Okay.
So
That's
they have the problems and all the cultures, the fact that they ate them for a long time. They ate them a long time in India too.
Yeah,
And most
sure.
I wanted to comment, it's long time, but we're talking about a few 100 years, or maybe up to 1,000 or something. But the fact is, we're in the middle of the age of ignorance here, or what we call
The
Kali
Kali Yuga.
Yuga, and that's why
Mhm.
we're eating the kind of food that might not be beneficial to us. So, it
yeah.
doesn't mean that it's because it's a tradition. It's something that's okay. It's because it's a tradition that was formed during the age of Kali Yuga. So, we're going into a different age now where those kind of foods
What was
hopefully
it?
available.
That's a good point. Just wanted to bring up, but yeah, that's a really good point, Linda. Thank you. What are you going to say, Jim?
That Vajra's mother wanted to have tomatoes. His mother. And
Okay.
Ayurveda has ways of making the toxic things non-toxic, many things.
Right. With spices
But
and various things.
right, but she wanted his dad to come up with something for tomatoes, and he said, "Can't do it. There's nothing."
Okay. Okay. Sure. Okay. Yeah. All right.
She came up with some spices and things like that, thought she could do it, and his father said, "Doesn't work. You can't do it."
Okay. Yeah, that's good. Let me see if I have anything else based on what
I
you.
asked the Vaidya, about because I had read actually that it's considered basically a sin. It's a bad deed when you eat garlic and onion. It's written in some scriptures, Indian scripture or Vedic scriptures, that it's considered a sin. And so I asked the Vaidya, why, if it's considered a sin, or is it that sometimes you're recommending onion and garlic, especially garlic when it's healthy and so forth, Well, I don't understand. I could never understand that one. So I asked him, and what he replied, this was not Mishra, another Vaidya, and what he replied was, yes, if it's incorrectly, it could be used as a medicine. The
Well, right.
moment, but the moment you start enjoying it, then it becomes a sin.
Well, I like to also think about garlic and onion as, the word sin, we're talking about, the yogic tradition where, the brahmacharya and those foods are stimulating, and, you want to have sattvic where, it's enhancing meditation. But to me, that's a little different than what their impact is on your health overall, because we're not necessarily all, or our clients, or we're not necessarily all living that particular lifestyle. And it's certainly not what most people adhere to. So I just wanted to put that out there as well.
Well, if you recall, I said two types of dravya. One is daily consumption, a hard dravya,
Yeah,
and
sure.
then aushadhi dravya, which is temporary.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, if they're used, I think what I gathered from what you said, Jim, is that they're not appropriate for daily use, but they are medicinal foods and they have appropriate use when used in that manner.
there was one, Vajra would tell a story of how one Brahmin man had to go fight. It was a Pakistani war. He was Brahmin, and he couldn't kill people. He couldn't fight. He was actually told to eat onion and garlic, so he could,
Okay.
so he could be in the battle. He couldn't face that, doing that sort of a deed from his sattvic space, but he had to.
Okay.
In that situation, he was actually advised to eat onion and garlic.
Okay, to give him that fortitude and kind of that strength and the
Yeah,
bala, maybe.
to close his heart down, so he could do
Okay.
things.
Close the heart, lotus, yeah.
Right. So that he could. I like what you said about the concept of prasana chitta, that nothing has changed in your life. Maybe there's the same problems, the same outward circumstances, but when you have a good meal, there is that feeling of bliss, and that permeates your consciousness, and yeah, it really does. I'll give an example. Yesterday, believe it or not, I had my 1-year-old granddaughter, and I cooked. Okay, there were onions. Don't close your ears. But I made escarole and a white bean soup, and then I made some curried vegetables with very light coconut milk broth, and I had millet. And the vegetables included broccoli rabe and sweet potatoes, no winter squashes, broccoli, string beans, carrots, cauliflower, a little bit of regular. Yeah. So it was really quite a mixture. Well, she was so happy. She was so happy eating that food. I mean, so it was just like total bliss. That was the prasana chitta, it was just, and it was such a joy to see it,
But it's
Anyway.
interesting to see actually that normally children, they don't actually like, especially garlic and that's such things. Often you see that children are not attracted to that. It's something that they kind of get accustomed to later on in life. But children are usually more pure, and I think they kind of sense that it's not the best thing. Then they
No,
get
that's
older, and then
that's a
they
very well, they don't necessarily like that pungent, although garlic is very mellow once it's cooked. but it can have that pungent quality that I think could be a deterrent for children.
We
Good
never
point.
talked. You didn't talk also about chocolate cacao beans. Or is that part of a nightshade, or why is it because they use?
Well, it's not a nightshade, but it's very heavy on, especially for the liver to transform it. It's very heavy on the liver.
It's also very. I mean, I
But
love cacao. I love cacao, but it's also very stimulating as well. I mean, it's it is a stimulating food. There's no doubt.
it's heaviness on the liver is the reason he doesn't. But there, you can make it better. Vaidya
Could
has
I,
chocolate
Oh yeah.
recipes with different spices. Yeah,
could I ask about the flax, please?
very heating. Totally bad for the liver. Very heating, heats up the liver really bad. The
Okay.
Flax?
Butag we see.
Flaxseed.
Vaidya Mishra feels that it
Because
contributes.
a lot of vegetarians will use
Yeah.
flaxseed because they're not getting the omega-3s through their
But they don't
vegetarian diet.
understand the prabhavas, the fact what it does to the liver. He says it will contribute to liver cancer, eating flax a long time.
Okay, wow. Okay, all right. I mean, it's so
Well, and
promoted as a
what's
health food.
important to know also for that flax, and I've noticed this myself also, flax seed oil, yes, it might have, does have omega-3 in it, but it goes rancid extremely fast. You buy a bottle of flaxseed oil and after a few days start smelling,
Yeah, you're
rancid.
already
It's
you're,
toxic, yeah.
you're already putting, well, it's hot toxic for the liver anyway, but even worse when it goes rancid.
Yeah.
Not just the liver, your
Oh,
whole body
okay,
is
okay. You're
going over.
saying it's highly perishable. Is that what you're indicating, Linda?
Yeah.
Okay.
But
Yeah,
as soon as it's not as it's seed form anymore, as soon as you make it into oil or you grind it down, so like some
Sure.
people
yeah,
make
it will
flour out of it,
oxidize.
it's very
Sure.
unhealthy. But
Mm.
psyllium, how about psyllium? Because they talk about making, vegetarians are using flax flour to make flax eggs, which they use for baking. But what about psyllium? Psyllium should be okay though. Do psyllium husk and psyllium
Well,
Well, there's a
psyllium husk is used mostly for a
for
laxative for the most part.
yeah, for laxative, but
Right.
also for you could make flax egg. I mean, psyllium instead of.
Okay, I wasn't aware of that. The flaxseed you can use as an egg substitute.
It's very because it's very you mix it with water and it becomes very.
Well, it's very
Very gelatinous. Yeah, I
Yes,
never heard
yes.
of psyllium being used as in lieu of an egg in a
yeah, I'm not
vegan type thing.
quite
But
sure what that would do to the schrotas either, being very
yeah,
gelatinous and sticky. It may be clogging once it goes into circulation. It may carry that stickiness
Yeah, that's
where
the
you don't want it.
question there. That's
I
the
don't know.
question.
I
yeah.
I don't use psyllium. I know psyllium can be used as a bulk kind of a laxative.
Sure.
But there are other things too that are not as heavy.
Okay, I think we're getting to time. So, what are your thoughts regarding next week, Jim? Is that something you want to give some thought
No,
to, or you have some ideas?
I have no idea yet,
Oh,
but I will.
are we gonna do next week because it's Thanksgiving?
Oh, probably not then, right?
Yeah, we should take a break, right?
Give Jim a
Yeah,
break. Yeah.
Yeah,
yeah.
we'll resume the following week.
I might be
All
going out
right.
to I might be going out to LA in about 10 days for a week. Not
Well,
sure yet.
we'll chat. We'll chat. So, Jim,
Yeah.
thanks so much. I think it's a wrap, and this is Ayurveda Cafe 10. So